Okay, let's look at the lizards quickly. The lizards are one of the two suborders of the order Squamata, or two suborders that we'll worry about. Squamata are the snakes and the lizards. They differ primarily. Most people would say, well, the difference between snakes and lizards, it's obvious. Lizards have legs and snakes don't. It's not exactly true. There are quite a few legless lizards. There aren't any legged snakes, but there certainly could be. The real difference between snakes and lizards is not so much the limbs as it is certain other features like the jaw and the eyes and the ears. We might talk about that later, but I'm not going to deal with it right now. There's some 3,000 species of lizards worldwide. We probably have 20, a couple of dozen maybe in the state of Alabama. We'll look at some of the more common ones. And we'll go by family. The family Anguidae are the glass lizards. There are, that should say 11 genera of about 80 species. And there are two that we might encounter. We'd consider ourselves lucky if we did. The glass lizards, at least the ones that we'll see, have no legs. They're quite stiff. They have a lot of body armor in their skin. In fact, the body's so stiff that they wouldn't be able to respire if they didn't have grooves in the body that allow them to expand. They are terrestrial and they burrow. And in fact, in the ones that we have, the tail vertebrae have fracture planes, and the tail will break off quite easily. That's true of a lot of the lizards that we have. This is the slender glass lizard, reaches a length of about 1 meter, and we also have the eastern glass lizard, very similar in size. We'll worry about distinguishing them if we have to. The family Iguanidae, the most common of our lizards. 5 clawed toes on each of their legs. Most of them are climbers, and they are very visually oriented. They have some behaviors that take advantage of that. This is by far our best known lizard, the green anole, which is not always green. They're brown or green, and they have a dramatic ability to change color. The males have a distinctive dewlap, which they use as a display. It's a secondary sexual characteristic that they'll use in displaying. These are quite common around your home. They reach a length, snout to vent length of about 7 centimeters. They're diurnal, but you can collect them at night. Actually, the moisture on the skin will make them shine at night, so you can go out with a light and look for them. They like a shaded perch. The adults, anyway. The juveniles will prefer sunny areas. The anole usually, and actually you'll hear it pronounced anole. I tend to say anole, but basking anoles are usually brown, and they turn green when they fight, and they have a black patch right behind the eye when they get really excited. They feed on insects. This is actually an exotic that I haven't seen yet in Alabama, but expect to before long. This is the Caribbean brown anole. A lot of exotic lizards showing up. This is a native, though. This is Scalopus undulatus, the eastern fence lizard. Snout to vent length of around 8 or 9 centimeters. They have very distinctly keeled scales, and gives them a venomous appearance. They're not. Although a lot of older residents will tell you that these are venomous. They're diurnal. They like rotten logs and fences, hence the common name. They're also insectivores. The male is territorial, like a lot of the lizards. He'll do a head bob when he encounters other males. This is another exotic that you are probably seeing around town now. You might have these in your apartment. A lot of our students do. This is Hemidactylus tursicus. It's actually misplaced here. It's in a separate family. It's in the family Gecconidae, but I didn't have an introductory slide for that family. This is a small gecko that is gradually spreading into Alabama from Florida, where it's also exotic. And the family Cincidae, widespread group of some 90 genera, over 1,000 species, and they're found on every continent except for Antarctica. We have some 15 species in the U.S. The body is round in cross section, very smooth. The tail is usually covered by very small scales, and the terrestrial skinks that we have very small legs. At first glance, they look a lot like a snake because the legs are so small. They all have fracture planes in the tail, and the tail will break off very easily. And the tail is often brightly colored, and it serves as a defensive adaptation. When the fact that they can break that tail off, it has a nerve center in it that causes it to sit there and wiggle and perhaps distract a potential predator. They're also diurnal. We have several species that I'll just show you quickly. This is Plestiodon fasciatus, the five-lined skink. Older male and a young male here. This is the southeastern five-lined skink, which differs from the common five-lined skink in one of the most obscure ways you can imagine. You have to look underneath the tail at the width of the mid-ventral row of scales. The broad-headed skink, our largest skink, which has a maximum snout-to-vent length of about 13 centimeters, they actually will attack the nest of red wasp and dislodge the pupae, and apparently the stingers of the wasp cannot penetrate the scales of the skink. These are called scorpions over a wide range of their territory. They also have a very menacing looking appearance, particularly the male with this. It even gets wider and oranger than that. They're a very impressive looking animal. The female looks very much like the five-lined skink. You have to go to some really obscure characters in the scales above the jaw to distinguish the female broad-headed skink from the common five-lined skink. And this little tiny guy we see a lot. They only get about 5 centimeters long, tan to dark brown. This is the ground skink, Cincella laterale. This is a skink tail that has been broken off, and I think that link will show you something, and it will eventually grow it back. We might encounter a member of the family Teiidae. These are the race runners, or sometimes called the whiptails. They have very long whip-like tails, long legs compared to some of the other lizards, very fast. They're diurnal terrestrial carnivores. The one that we have is the six-lined race runner, and you'll often see these running down a sandy road. Oftentimes they'll get out in front of your vehicle and take off. Interesting scale pattern here where the front part of the body has very small scales. It looks almost velvety in appearance. And then when you get into the tail, they've got these large keeled scales. Unusual pattern. That brings us into the snakes, and I'm going to move very rapidly through some of these. A lot of the nocturnal and burrowing species we're unlikely to see, but I do want to make sure that you have some familiarity with some of the more common species that we might encounter. There are some 2,700 species. They also are found on all of the continents except Antarctica. We don't have any extant snakes with limbs. There are some fossil snakes that had small limbs. They don't have external ear openings. They don't have eyelids. They also have a jaw that can disarticulate, and that allows them to swallow large prey whole. They are over 100 species found in the United States, of which 17 species are venomous, and I like to encourage people to remember that. If you see a snake and you don't know what it is, there's an excellent chance that it is perfectly harmless, but you do need to know what the venomous species are. In our state, we have 6 species that you might encounter that are venomous. We'll look at those. But first we'll look at the family Colubridae. These are the constrictors. It is the largest of all the snake families. The head is not particularly wide. It's about the same width as the neck. They have round or sometimes vertical pupils. There's one way that you can look at the underside of the tail and tell whether it's a member of this family. I'm not going to try to go into that here. I might talk about it when we're in the field. Tremendous variation in their habits. There are some that have live young, although most give birth to live young. And I'm just going to show you a few pictures here of some of the colubrids that we have. This is the worm snake, one of the small burrowing snakes. The northern scarlet snake, one of several coral snake mimics that we have. In this one, notice that you've got these red saddles that are bordered with black. That's the pattern in the non-venomous mimics. Very common colubrid that we might see. This is the black racer. Solid black except for a white patch under the chin. These can reach almost 6 feet in length. They're tremendously fast. They're hard to catch. Quite aggressive. This is the juvenile. A lot of cases where the juvenile snake doesn't look anything like the adult, and this is one of them. This is the southern ringneck. Almost a blue-black or blue-gray on top with this orange ring. The underside very distinctive. Small snake, reaches about 40 centimeters. It's another snake that likes to burrow. Corn snake, which is one of the larger of the constrictors that we might see. They reach about 5 feet in length with this sort of squarish pattern of saddles. Closely related to them is the gray rat snake. There are several varieties of rat snakes in the state of Alabama. This is the one that we commonly see locally, and it is gray with this pattern of sort of brownish gray saddles. Quite large, can be as much as 7 or 8 feet in length. It's a skilled climber. In fact, where I grew up, these were known as oak snakes because they are very common in trees. And they will raid the nest of birds frequently. You may, in fact, see or hear a bunch of blue jays when they are mobbing a rat snake in a tree. Actually, sometimes the action of the blue jays will attract a hawk, which will come in and try to prey on the rat snake. They sometimes will share a den with rattlesnakes. In fact, sometimes they're called pilot snakes, because people think that they hang out with rattlesnakes. This is the common chicken snake also. They like bird eggs, including chicken eggs. I believe this is one that we collected in the field. This is the black rat snake, which we don't see locally, but is certainly common in some areas of Alabama, particularly to the north of us. There are a couple of beautifully colored water snakes in the genus Francia. This is the western mud snake, which gets quite large. This is a former student of ours who interned at the Noxubee Wildlife Management Area, and this is a large mud snake that they collected. You can see how large. And closely related to the mud snake, the same genus, is Francia retrogramma, the rainbow snake. Beautifully colored. We have a couple of hognose snakes in the state, and this is the one that we have locally, Heterodon platyrhinos, the eastern hognose. Hognose have some of the most interesting behaviors of all the snakes. They're sometimes called the spreading adder because they flatten their head and neck, and they bluff. They make their head look quite large, like a cobra. And then if that doesn't work, they play dead. Oh, that's the flat head. But then if that doesn't work, they play dead. Roll over on their back, they gape the mouth, the tongue hangs out. But the cool thing about them is if you pick this snake up and turn him back over, he will promptly turn back over on his back again. They haven't quite figured that out. We have a number of king snakes, which are great snakes to have around. The king snake. This is the eastern king snake, Lampropeltis gedela. At least that's the way I pronounce it. The king snake is quite large. They can be 6-7 feet long. The body is this bluish black color with these alternating yellowish bands. The belly is checkered with yellow and black. They are a diurnal snake, and they are a very strong constrictor, and they're famous for preying on other snakes, including venomous snakes. And something just happened. I'm not sure, but my screen went blank.
Let's see what I can do. I'm gonna pause.
Well, I'm getting some weird things. I'm going to see if I can upload this so that I don't lose it.